Walking away from someone you once gave your heart to never feels like strength. At least in the beginning, it feels like a funeral. A quiet, silent funeral, where the other person doesn't even realize what they've lost right away. The realization comes much later, when the dust settles. Do you doubt yourself? Do you ask if it all even mattered? But here's the truth. When a woman leaves, not out of spite, but to find peace of mind, a crack forms in a man's psyche. Even if he doesn't show it, it happens. Carl Jung believed that every relationship is a mirror of our inner world. When a woman leaves, she doesn't just leave a man. She shatters the mirror he looked into to see himself. And many don't understand what they've lost until that mirror explodes into 1,000 shards at their feet. Even if you're half listening to this right now, going about your day, don't turn it off. Our channel believes your subconscious is always on guard. So even if you're making dinner, taking a walk, or just lying down, your mind will absorb what it needs. Don't worry if you miss some words. The message will still reach you. And if you've ever left a man, wondering what he truly felt, behind the mask of ego, pride, and silence, this is for you. Because beneath that surface lies much more than you think. First, his ego crumbles, not his world. When a woman leaves, the first thing a man feels isn't sadness, or love, or even loneliness. It's a blow to his ego. It's what cracks first, not his soul, but his sense of control. Carl Jung said that the ego is the image we show the world, who we want to appear to be in the eyes of others. In many relationships, especially if a man hasn't worked on his inner world, his self-esteem is directly tied to how much he controls your emotions. As long as you respond to his messages, try to explain things, engage in the arguments he starts, he feels safe, not necessarily loved, but in charge. So when you finally leave, when you fall silent, stop knocking on a closed door, and become unavailable, you're not just disrupting his routine. You're pulling the rug out from under his self-perception. A man's ego often mistakes availability for approval. If you're around, it means he's still important, still desired. But your absence screams the opposite. It says, "You're no longer the center of my universe." This thought doesn't hurt him yet. At first, it irritates him, wounds his pride, makes him feel like a loser. He might act like he doesn't care, become cold, distant, even sarcastic. But that reaction isn't strength. It's defense. It's a mask. Because deep down, he's starting to understand. Access to you is lost, and he doesn't know what to do about it. Most men aren't taught to deal with emotional loss. They want to win, to take, to control. So when a woman leaves not in hysterics, but with quiet dignity, she disarms him. No one to argue with, no one to dominate, no one to pressure. All that's left is silence, and that silence shatters his illusion of control. That's where the real change begins. He might not call it loss yet, but something inside him is crumbling, especially if he once felt like a real man thanks to your love. Now he has to ask himself a question that will haunt him longer than he'll ever admit. Who am I without her approval? But the crumbling ego is just the first tremor. What awakens next is much darker, and he can't escape it. When you leave, it awakens his shadow. Carl Jung introduced the concept of the shadow, the unconscious corner of our soul, where we store everything we deny in ourselves. Our fears, insecurities, old wounds, and the emotions we were taught to suppress. In many men, the shadow hides dependence, vulnerability, shame, and a deep-seated feeling that they're not good enough. As long as you were around, loving him, giving him support, smoothing out the rough edges, his shadow slumbered, lulled by your presence. You were a dam, holding back the dark waters of his unresolved issues. But the moment you leave, that dam breaks. The shadow awakens. Why? Because you're no longer there to act as a buffer for what he didn't want to feel. Your absence deprives him of the ability to escape himself. He has nowhere to pour out his inner emptiness, no instant consolation. And then, for the first time in a long time, he starts to hear himself. It's at this moment that the questions appear. Why did she really leave? Why couldn't I hold on to her? What part of me pushed her away? And even if he tries to distract himself, meet new people, post photos on social media as if nothing happened, your silence echoes after him everywhere. He misses you not out of simple need. He misses you because his shadow has spoken for the first time, and its voice isn't sweet. It's cruel. He might never say it out loud, but he feels the difference. He realizes he lost something rare. And no matter how hard he tries to convince himself otherwise, deep down, he knows. You were his chance to grow, to learn to love differently. And he missed that chance. Jung said that healing begins when we meet our shadow, face to face. Sometimes, a woman's departure is the only way for a man to finally see his shadow. It's not a pretty process. It's rough, humiliating, but necessary. Your silence becomes a revelation for him. Left alone with what you used to hold in your hands, he realizes how much of himself he trusted you with. And when that shadow starts talking, it leads to a feeling he never expected. It's not sadness yet. It's a belated awareness, which our channel will discuss next. 3. Regret comes later. In the silence, many women think a man will start regretting it immediately. But regret isn't a scoundrel. It doesn't burst in with a scream. It comes quietly, with a long delay. For most men, it doesn't appear the moment you leave. It comes much later, when everything goes silent. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious needs time to bring the truth to us. The ego, by its nature, resists. It clings to pride, to justifications like, "I didn't want her that much anyway," or "It was all her fault," any mechanism to avoid looking inside. So immediately after you leave, there's not sorrow, but distraction. He fills the void you left. He goes to bars, actively meets other women, trying to prove, first of all to himself, that it doesn't bother him, that he doesn't miss you, that he's moving on. But regret isn't impressed by showmanship. It waits for the noise of the parties to die down. When the compliments from a new acquaintance seem bland, when he realizes she doesn't understand him the way you did. It waits for the moment when he's alone in his apartment, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly the radio plays that song you loved. And that's when he feels it, not as a sharp blow, but as a deep, sucking emptiness. He doesn't miss your image. He misses your energy, your loyalty, your peace. He misses how you understood him, even when he didn't know what he was feeling. He starts to remember how you cared for him, how you believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. But here's the cruelest part. By the time he realizes all this, you've probably already started to heal. You've already rebuilt your inner core. You've grown. You've created a life that no longer revolves around him. So for him, regret feels not like, "I want to come back," but like, "I can't come back anymore." It's like watching a slowly closing door, knowing you'll never be able to enter it again. Jung said that the human soul changes only when the pain of staying the same exceeds the fear of changing. That's what regret does. It makes him see that he lost not just someone, he lost you specifically, and in doing so, lost the opportunity to grow together with you. But this regret does something more than just cause sadness. It holds up a mirror to his face, and what he sees in it is the subject of our next, and perhaps most painful point. Your absence mirrors his inadequacy. One of the harshest truths that Jung revealed is that we see the world not as it is, but as we are. So when a woman leaves, she doesn't just leave an empty space. She leaves a mirror, and that mirror reflects him not as he wanted to appear, but as he truly is. At first, he might look in that mirror and not see anything wrong. His ego will still whisper to him, "She was too emotional, too demanding, always nagging." But over time, as your absence becomes longer and longer, the mirror becomes clearer. He starts to understand that the problem wasn't you, that you were the one holding everything on your shoulders, the one waiting, the one enduring longer than you should have. And what this mirror shows him is not easy to bear. Moments when he ignored your needs, instances when he withdrew even though you were only seeking closeness, promises he never kept. His fear of emotional work, while you continued to try. Here is where shame appears. As Jung said, shame is a great teacher. It says not just, "You did wrong," but "You weren't good enough." Even if that's not entirely true, that feeling pierces him, especially if he felt more masculine when you admired him, when you believed in him more than he did himself. Now, without your gaze, without your support, he's left alone with himself. And he asks himself the most uncomfortable question: why couldn't I become the man she saw in me? At this moment, many men start to remember not grandiose events, unfulfilled trips, or missed gifts. They remember how you looked at them when you opened your soul, remember your calm voice when they were having another crisis, remember that you were there, and they weren't. And that hurts, It hurts not as a loss, but as a failure. As Jung taught, when we lose someone who reflected who we could be, it hurts not only the absence of the person, it hurts the realization that we couldn't reach that potential. So he doesn't just miss you, he misses that version of himself that only existed when you believed in it. And now that this version has nowhere to project itself, all that's left is a reflection. A man who had something valuable and didn't know how to keep it. Seeing this failure in the mirror, he finds himself at a crossroads. He faces a choice that every man in his position faces. Can he grow, or will he stay stuck? The answer to this question is often the bitterest pill for a woman to swallow. 5. Some change, most don't. This is perhaps one of the hardest truths to accept. Not all men change after you leave. You might have hoped that your silence would be a wake-up call for him, that your absence would reveal something in him, make him realize his loss, and spur him to grow. Sometimes that happens, but very often it doesn't. Carl Jung believed that the path of transformation, which he called individuation, begins only when a person is ready to face their shadow and accept it. And this doesn't happen automatically. It requires humility, responsibility, and pain. And, most importantly, the courage to stop blaming others and start looking inside oneself. This is where most men stumble. When a woman leaves, he has two paths, to grow or to repeat. Some men actually stop and start analyzing. They begin to see their recurring scenarios. They understand why they sabotage relationships, why they push away true love, why they run as soon as things get real. These men don't change overnight, but the emotional blow awakens them. They want to change not to get you back, but because they realize they can no longer remain the person who let go of someone like you. But others do the opposite. They quickly find a replacement, projecting their emptiness onto the next person. They change the face next to them, but not their consciousness. They repeat the same justifications, the same actions, the same fears. They tell themselves and others that you were too complicated, wanted too much, and in doing so, simply dim the light in the mirror that your absence left behind. They move on, but they don't move forward. Their new relationships might seem fresh, but the emotional pattern remains the same. And although they smile and pretend that everything is fine, they know they lost something real, because what you gave wasn't ordinary. It was sincere devotion, patience, deep love, and they walked past it. So what does he feel? At first, nothing. Then, a blow to his ego. Then, shame. And after that, depending on the person, comes either transformation or repetition. Your absence becomes that silent fork in the road on his life's journey. But regardless of which path he chooses, it's vital for you to understand the true nature of your departure. It wasn't an act of aggression, but something much deeper. 6. Your departure is proof that you loved truly. There's a misconception that when a woman leaves, she wants to win, that her departure demonstrates superiority. Like, look how I shine without you. Yes, sometimes there's a grain of truth in that. But most often, the truth is much softer and more painful. You didn't leave to prove anything. You left because you had nothing left to give. Carl Jung said that true love is born from deep vulnerability. And when a woman stays, despite the emptiness, the silence, the contradictions, it's not because she has no dignity. It's because she loves truly. She sees potential. She takes a chance. She believes again and again, until that very giving turns into a struggle for survival, until staying becomes synonymous with betraying herself. So when you decided to leave, it wasn't because you stopped loving. It was because you finally began to feel love for yourself. And that decision isn't revenge, it's healing. But don't confuse that with ease. Leaving after loving with all your soul is one of the hardest decisions in a woman's life, because your love was real. And what he feels when you leave is not just your absence. It's an echo of everything you denied yourself in the silence, of every moment when you tried to reach him, and he closed off, of every conversation you had, and he avoided, of every time you bet on you two, while he bet only on himself. He loses not just another woman. He loses that version of himself that you helped him build, that version that existed only in the safe space you created. And when that version disappears, he doesn't just miss you. He misses who he could have become with you. Your departure wasn't a demonstration of strength. It was the final act of deep love, a love that said, I would have gone through fire and water with you If you had only reached out your hand. But now it's not about what he feels anymore. It's about what you can finally feel. Having stopped shrinking and adjusting. Your departure doesn't mean you didn't love. It means you finally loved yourself enough to stop begging for the right to be seen. As Jung said, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. And when you leave without hate, without scandal, without the need for explanations, you choose to return to yourself. So, if you've already left, let this remind you of the most important thing. You're not bad because you chose peace. You're not cold because you established distance. You're not weak because you endured for so long. You're brave because you let go of what didn't want to grow with you.